Hello everyone. I know I'm early again this week, so I'm just trying to catch you off guard. But this week we've covered how to think about psychological and political game playing in the workplace or in social contexts. And we've also looked at other areas around the project management plan, how you can put in place a single project management plan on one piece of paper and be able to plan it out and plot it out. And so you're able to see and re-watch the video back to say if your project or change in your organization isn't going according to plan, then that should give you an idea as to some of the tools that you might want to implement if you haven't implemented them already. And also think of the other points made around different tools and processes and procedures within the project management plan to ensure that you've implemented them correctly. So it's very much like making a really beautiful meal. It depends on the quality of the ingredients, and if one of those ingredients isn't there, or if one of those ingredients isn't made properly, then sometimes it can affect the whole dish. So this one is all about decision making, and it's all about implementing actions. Even when you've got an action plan, this will allow you to be even more sure on putting these plans, the growth strategies, into action. And it's a very simple implementation checklist. So if you watch till the end, we're going to go through 10 checks that you can establish within your action plan so that you know that things are in place before you're able to move forward. And this is for the entrepreneurs or the solopreneurs that have got their growth strategy, they've put it into an action plan, and they just want to check, not procrastinate, but just ensure that you've taken into account everything when putting things into action. So this is how you're able to take that leap in some regards from the action plan to tangible outcomes and tangible actions. So this is going out on LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Facebook. So please like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching from one of those platforms. I'm TheStrategySmith. I'm a global management consultant and business coach. I also work as a mergers and acquisitions advisory. If you want to work with me, then book a call, 15-minute free discovery call with me, and we can discuss your growth goals and how we can move you forward and potentially work together in the future. So this is all about an implementation checklist. So you've done your growth strategy, you understand what actions you need to take and put it in form of an action plan. Ideally, you've created your project management plan and you've documented the work breakdown in sequence. You may have product breakdown, or you may have cost breakdown, budgets, etc. And so when you do your risk analysis, or when you're looking at just wanting to move forward and move things forward from an action plan, you might not want to create an industry out of it in order to get stuff done. But this checklist will allow you to at least see how you can make that step forward. So the first check before taking action is ask resources. Is there enough time, people, money, equipment, information? Again, ask the 7 questions if you haven't already when you create a project. The 7 questions are why is always first. Who, where, what, when, how much, and why, who, where, what, when, and how much. Then resources, ensure that you've got enough time, you've got enough people, you've got enough funds to move it forward, and you've got enough equipment or information to ensure that you're able to move forward and make that decision. So if you've got enough time, people, equipment, and info, then you're able to know that you can make that next step. The next question is motivation. Are the people around you motivated to implement the change? So going back to your stakeholders, understanding who you've got around you, who can relate to your task, your growth goals, and your action plan. Is there enough motivation to get that moving and get that rolling steady? Is there any resistance? So do you see any resistance on to the change? Do you feel any resistance to the change? So is there any closed thinking? And remember that when you involve people in the plan, to plan the change, they rarely want to change the plan. So in terms of resistance, ensure that you've got enough people that that are advocates towards the change. And if you are facing resistance, then it's advisable to start bringing people into the fold and allow them to plan the change with you, because then they will rarely need to change the plan. So is there any resistance? Are there any obstacles in relation to procedures or policies? So are there any obstacles that you need to overcome in terms of policies and procedures? Are there any structural or hierarchical issues? So will structure allow the change? In terms of communication, sometimes a structure or a hierarchy can block communications. They can form bottlenecks so that things can't get through in a timely manner. And so in terms of structure and hierarchy, is that going to cause any issues? And is there sufficient structure in place for the change to move forward, for the action to take that first step? And if there isn't, then you have your next action, which is to make sure that there is, or you can overcome the obstacles that are within the structure or hierarchy. Now, the other element to this is also to understand the level of risk. So what's the level of risk in terms of the actions that you're taking? Now, in purest project management form, you will have done a risk analysis, you'll have assessed impact, you might have different impact factors, you might have systems people, budget, for example, and you can weight them as to how, if the risk is proved to be an issue, and it's been made tangible, it's coming to fruition, then you can allocate the weighting in terms of the impact to those impact factors. Or you can just say impact and probability. And probability is the same throughout. So then you can assess and understand, has this happened before in terms of the risk? If it has, then obviously the probability of it happening again is higher. And what impact did it have, which will allow us to therefore rank the impact to the overall project and to the action specifically that we're taking. So looking at probability. And impact. Okay. Next is looking at any power struggles within the organization. So in terms of power, so we've done quite a lot of work on this now in terms of power and politics in the workplace, business and social context, the individual and specific games that can be played in terms of political game playing. And are there any power struggles? Can you see alliance forming, for example, could an alliance be formed should this action or the overall project not be received well? Do you need to form some form of alliance or start to bring your advocates around you so that you can increase your legitimate or expert power, or both? So are there any power struggles? And then, of course, if there's issues with the structure, the risk, and the power struggles, then do you foresee any clashes? Is something that you're implementing going to disrupt things? Sometimes it can be a good thing to be a disruptor in terms of a market. Also, if you're implementing something or you're taking an action that could affect somebody else, positively or negatively, could there be some form of clash in terms of power and things like that? To overcome clashes is, again, go back to resistance and engage to prevent any power struggles or clashes happening in the workplace or even in social contexts. If you're changing something in a social context, you might change the date to an event, and we do this as humans, is think, wow, I've invited everybody now, we can't change the date, but unfortunately we have to. You can start to think about, well, who's actually going to, is there going to be some form of clash that I really care about in terms of a social context? And is that risk going to be so impactful that I need to stick to my word and keep that date, just as an example? And if the impact is low, but the probability is high, maybe you've got an emergency that you need to change the date, then of course you can rely on the checklist in order to take action and move forward. In a business context, if you want to increase your prices, if you want to increase sales, if you want to bring in a new sales team, or if you want to make changes in your organization, etc., if you want to change systems in your business, this checklist will hold you in good stead, because you'll need to understand before you take action, even when you've got your project definition and your project plan, you will have crossed off a lot of these, hopefully, in building that project plan. But even as the decision maker, and you might be the person responsible for the success of a project or an action or a change in your workplace or in a social context, you can go through one or all of these checklists. And then another one that's a bit deeper, you need to know your organization and know your surroundings, the organizational and operational context. But what is the climate and culture like? So in terms of, is the culture one that is open to change or stuck in tradition, the status quo of events? Is it a comfortable structure that no one wants to really disrupt? And that's a good check to do before taking action as well. And so going through these checks, so 1, 2, 3 procedures, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Going through these simple checks before taking action will give you the assurance that you're ready to take that step. Have I got enough resources in terms of time, people, money, equipment, information? You've asked the 7 questions, the 6 there: why, who, where, what, when, and why, who, where, what, when, how much, and how much. That's bothering me, but we'll get to it. And then the processes and procedures, the structure and the hierarchy, the risk, power, clashes, and any climate and culture issues in the workplace. All right. So remember, go through these 10 checks to be able to implement the actions. And once you've crossed off these checks to implement actions, you can take that step moving forward to implement your action plans.